Some of the best projects are the smaller music videos. Their budgets are never great at all. They know that, and it's like, have fun.
Welcome to the Remotely Creative Podcast. I'm your host, Scotty Carlson. Our guest today is Jeremy Kenning. He's a former business partner, he's a great mustache grower, and he's currently working as a visual effects supervisor on a huge project. Like many creative careers, Jeremy's path to getting where he is today is full of twists and turns and some rough cut lumber. Jeremy is an incredible human with tremendous experience. I'm a big fan of Jer, and I think you'll love this one.
Anything I should know? Like no. Just don't spike the camera or
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
My kid was in here the other day and with his backpack on, like whipped around, knocked my light, smashed to the ground. I was like, oh, nice, thanks, bud.
Yeah.
You can go home now.
Yeah.
I cursed a little bit.
Yeah.
But you're Jeremy Kenning.
I am.
Yeah. Grew up in Roslyn.
Yep.
Now live in Castlegar, British Columbia.
I'm in Castlegar, yeah.
I grew up in Castlegar, now I'm in Roslyn.
We just switched places, basically.
Quick hot swap.
Yeah.
We're hot swappable at any time.
Yeah.
And we actually met in college.
That's right.
For multimedia production and design.
Which is now just digital arts, I believe, which probably is a little bit better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember showing up and I had no idea what I was doing, but I remember you came in, you kind of had like this hip hop style going on, and you like knew things, and I was like, holy smokes, where have I landed? I need to like really catch up. But I remember thinking like, I need to kind of sit close to that guy and learn. And you knew like the cool websites at the time, and you showed me like so many things that then influenced, where I ended up going and got interested. And since then, and then we had a business together.
Yeah.
I feel like it's only been a couple of years since we are no longer in business together, but it's probably been 15
years. Yeah, I think something like that. I mean, I had a great run with Juicy. Yeah, it was like a good 7 or 8 years, I think. Yeah.
That 7 or 8 years feels like it was like 30, It's
yeah.
like
Yeah. It definitely does. That feels way longer, and the time since has felt like way shorter. For sure.
Strange how that happens. But you've done kind of everything. You've done graphic design. You've done silk screening. You've done all sorts of animation stuff. Yeah. But now primarily visual effects, would you say?
Yeah, I would say it's just kind of like funneled down into like, mostly visual effects, motion graphics, video stuff. Like I don't really do any other things than like post. That being said, that's huge field on its own. So I'm still wear a ton of hats.
It's such a weird thing to try and describe, when people ask you what you do.
It's insane. Like, I'm an animator. That's just kind of what it comes down to. And they're like, oh, you do, they start like needling you a little bit. And they're like, oh, you do like characters and stuff like, I'm like, no, not that kind of animation. Well, what do you like draw? I'm like, well, no, it's impossible trying to describe somebody what like a solo sort of artist worker does,
Yeah, I think that's probably part of it. One is like it's freelance, so it's kind of like always changing, and then two, it's like such a wide field. Even within like, if you said you're a visual effects artist, it's like, well, what part of that are you doing? Are you compositing? Are you modeling? Are you I should finish generalist is what I was going to say.
Yeah. Actually, that's probably where I would sit.
Right.
Yeah.
But like, if your kid's going to school and it's like, bring your parent, to school day. And my dad's a visual effects generalist, kids are like, what?
But even not really, because we do like, it's very tricky. Yeah.
And on top of that, you're doing it from Castlegar, which is, a population of 7,000, 10,000 people.
Yeah, in there somewhere. Yeah.
And, roughly 8 hours from Vancouver, 8 hours from Calgary. Yeah. Not a hotbed of visual effects or animation.
It's not really a hotbed of anything outside of like lumber and pulp and education. Yeah. That's about it. The college, lumber, and pulp, that's kind of what it is.
Is there one more visual effects artist in Castlegar?
Oh, I'm sure there is. I did meet one, and he was a rigger. He worked for a studio, I think.
Right.
but he just did it remotely. But,
Right.
I'm sure there is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure there is.
Probably.
Yeah.
There's Silva, Manuel.
Yeah, Manuel. Yeah.
More video games, but
Yeah. Well, same kind of deal. Like the crossover is pretty close. But
Yeah.
Yeah.
and for the last what you said, like 10 years, you've been like fully freelance because you're working with the Sherpas doing
Yeah.
visual effects for them.
Yeah, I was still doing freelance stuff. I was kind of on the payroll with them, but just more like on as a retainer kind of thing. So whatever they needed, I just sort of like helped him out. But there was definitely times where it'd be way more busy and quiet,
Right.
you know. So yeah, just been pretty much doing freelance one way or another forever now. Yeah. Yeah.
And with those guys, you kind of the right word is, but kind of pioneered a new cool time lapse.
Oh yeah, we do. It's, you know what? It's not even rocket science really. It was just something I saw something once on YouTube back in like, I don't know, 2008 or something like that, and I was like, it's like this kind of moving time lapse kind of thing, and I was like, man, that could kind of sparked it. I was like, I could do that so much better, and like, why isn't anyone doing this? Because it's not that hard to do, you know. It's not. So yeah, I just kind of took that and sort of, I don't know, rethought it out a little bit more and sort of put in these so we make these like moving time lapse, basically adding a camera to a still locked off time lapse.
And like you say that, but you know, people can do moving time lapses, but this is much more feels like a large movement. So the camera is moving more, not like a helicopter, but that same type of like it's covering, you know, major distance.
It has parallax.
Yeah.
So when you do a time lapse and you like, usually you see a moving time lapse, you just sort of like, you're just sort of basically scaling the image up. So it looks, that's a zoom, right? You're zooming in. This one actually is a dolly. So it like,
and even those
parallax.
ones, like even the ones that are on a slider, maybe it like moves 6 feet, but this one's moving 60 feet.
Yeah, it moves. Yeah, depending on how much room you've got to play with. Like you've done ones where it's like you can move like, you know, 500 meters or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool looking. I don't know if anybody hasn't seen it, if you would check out any of the Sherpas movies, you see these cool moving time lapses. Sherpas make typically skiing and outdoor films. Yeah. But it really is like when you see it, stops you in your tracks, and it's just
there's
really
a few
beautiful.
in Planet Earth too as well. Yeah, I had a bunch of shots in that one, so they used it kind of like did that to some of their time lapses.
Do you feel like that moment of like doing those kind of changed your trajectory at all? Like, did all of a sudden people look at what you were doing differently and like what they were able to do? And
a little bit. I don't think it was that profound though. Really, it was just sort of like people did come by and be like, "Hey, we want that." Yeah, it was a good like little bit of calling card, but I'm like, It looks neat for sure, but I was sure that like, oh, everyone's just gonna start doing this now, you know, like, because it's not technically that difficult to do.
You say that, but you actually showed me how to do it, and still to this day, I'm like, I'm not quite sure how to do it.
yeah, I hear you. Yeah, it's not like, it's not, you know, as easy as like hitting the scale button or something like that. It takes a lot of time and work and a lot of like, you know, cloning out and stuff like that. So
because I feel like it's one of those things that could look really janky, but yours looks so like it was done that way. It looks like someone flew a camera during a time lapse, and I think that's like such a difference. Like even the lighting and how it all like matches and like over the terrain.
A lot of people think it's drones, but you can't really get the same passage of time. I mean. Yeah. With a drone, you could do a really cool time lapse, but it's only your battery's only going to last like 40 minutes tops, and some of these time lapses go for days, right? So it's cool. It definitely changed. Like people definitely came knocking and said they wanted, you know, like commercials and stuff like that. Do a lot of like car commercials and stuff like that where they just kind of want that in the background or whatever. Like they're good little segues, you know, time to like good little edit points to like passage of time and stuff like that. So yeah.
Right. And then we'll just back it up a bit because so we went to a kind of graphic design, a little bit of 3D, a little bit of Photoshop, After Effects, kind of just your whole figure out how to do a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
And then we worked together for 5-7 years, kind of doing that. And then you decided to go back to school to kind of focus in on visual effects and modeling animation in Vancouver. And so when you came out of that, do you feel like what you're doing now, coming out of like all those programs and courses, are you happy with like the trajectory, or is there like something else you like, I'd love to be doing?
Yeah, that's a good question actually, because I'm sure at the time I didn't really have a trajectory. I was like, okay, this is just something I want to do. Like, me and you were working together for a long time, and it's like, yeah, I'd really like to focus in and just like dust up my skills on 3D more and like visual effects stuff. So I went to Vancouver Film School and took the 3D and animation program. And I didn't really think about after so much. I was just like, yeah, this is just something I want to do. Right. And it's something I've always wanted to do. So, but that being said, it was, it's not really, I didn't come out the way I thought it would. Yeah. Just because of the schooling was different than I thought. Those private schools they're not like, your community college or whatever. They're machines. They're straight up machines. So like the education's really good. They had like some of the best instructors, most knowledgeable instructors. But so like at the ground level, they're really good. But at the higher level, they're just like, there's a new class going in every 2 months, they're taking them in and spitting them out as far as like the upper level of like the operation of the place, which left left a mixed taste in my mouth, to be honest. At the end, I was like, they really just sort of like put you through the meat grinder and spit you out, and then that's it, you know. But I'm glad I did it. I wouldn't go back. I wouldn't take it back or anything. And
then you stayed in Vancouver for
was in Vancouver for a few more years. Just kind of tootled around. The weird thing is, coming out of school that's probably one of the reasons why the school was a little different for me. The schools are more geared towards getting you placement. That's what it is.
Right.
So everybody I graduated went to a studio. Everybody.
Right.
I didn't want to do that. Like, I knew I've been working with you for so long. We just had our freedom, and like, I mean, it's way harder than working at a studio for sure, because you gotta hustle, right? Like, everything's so much more stress and so much more hustling, but you're kind of free, right? So I didn't want to go and do the whole studio route. So I just kind of wanted to keep going. So if I'd have done that, things would be totally different, and I would have been like probably pretty happy, but I wouldn't have been able to move back to the Kootenays. I got tired of the city, there's just so many things that it being freelance in a rural area can offer, and that's not one of them. Right? Like finishing school, and you're basically bound to a city, right?
Yeah.
So, and I knew I couldn't live there forever. I love Vancouver, but couldn't do it now. Yeah.
So then you moved back, and at the time you were still doing freelance, and that's when you started working with the Sherpas.
Well, I'd always been working with the Sherpas. Yeah.
Right.
So I'd even been working with them before the Sherpas were Sherpas, really.
Right.
Yeah. And then I sort of went to school and then came back and got on with them again, just sort of working from home, just sort of on a retainer more or less. So when work came through, you just sort of do the work, and then you're free to sort of do freelance work on your own too. So it was kind of nice. Yeah. Nice. It's pretty good.
Yeah. And I imagine in like all that, you kind of exposed to another network of people that come and go, and then those people move on and they do things and they have their own careers, and then they call you, and And I think that's kind of part of like the small town, rural, creative person is like your network isn't here.
No.
It's like all these kind of like people that you work with for a project, or you kind of like are lumped together for a certain amount of time. Like a lot of the calls I get are from people that are not in this area, but we worked together for really closely for, you know, a few months on something, and then they went off and had their own.
Yeah, exactly. Career. Yeah, that's hit the nail on the head for sure. Same with me. Yeah, it's like just about who you sort of people you've worked with that sort of go off, and then they come, you know, they start doing other things, and then they call you. It's all kind of just word of mouth. Yeah. Old
school.
Yeah, it is very old school.
And you teach as well.
Yeah.
At a local college. What was the name of your courses?
So I started off just doing filling in for a mutual friend of ours, sort of like a mentor of ours. So he had another position at the college. So he's like, hey, why don't you come and fill in for me on a course? So I started doing that. It was like a 3D modeling kind of course.
Right.
And then it just, I thought he'd come back, but he never did to that position. So I just kept on going. Yeah. And then just took a few extra courses every now and then. Some came, some went. I'd do a couple things, but yeah, I've been sort of just doing like one day a week or a handful of courses for the last 10 years or so at the college, it's great. Yeah.
And the students that you teach, do lots of them, like, are they wanting to stay here, or what's your advice to them?
Geez. What's my advice to them? They're all so unique, everyone. There's definitely a lot of locals, which is great for the area, because they have an opportunity to not, you know, they can live at home basically and go to school and get some training and kind of figure out what they want to do without having to like go to Vancouver or wherever and then sort of find out that they don't like it and they've spent all this money, right? Like, which does happen quite a bit, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of locals. There's quite a few international students now. Not as many as other programs. Definitely not as many as other programs, but there is always like at least like 2 or 3 international students, sometimes a lot more. So they're just trying to find their way in a new land, you know? So a lot of them wind up staying here too and getting some work. And then, there's just like out of towners, people from like Alberta and northern BC and stuff like that. So.
And do, like, in the 3D component of it, do you find that like what they learn here is enough to like begin a career, or is it once? Yeah. Okay.
No. So like the program is more like a smorgasbord basically. Like they got web classes, they've got traditional arts classes, they've got video editing classes, production, like there's so many. It's just a big smorgasbord. That's kind of why I like it in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we took a course that was very similar, and you kind of found what you liked because it gave you a bit. Like, you didn't get super deep into any one of them, but you really did sort of find out what you were good at and what you liked.
Totally.
Which is pretty important, and it's a 2-year program, so it's definitely not a waste, you know, like, but that being said, a lot of students do go straight, like, there's a lot of talented students, there was some students that went straight to animation companies, and most people wind up like in graphic design. I'd say like graphic design's the big one out of there.
Yeah, and the cool thing I think about graphic design is it is kind of like the foundation of so many things. Like,
totally.
Get into motion design, or even into like storytelling, like being able to frame a shot, like in videography and stuff.
So related. Yeah, it's all so related. And you could, if you're a student and you're super into graphic design, you could get a job straight out of that course too. Right?
Yeah.
Just like all the other things, like I think you'd probably want to do a little bit more.
Yeah,
for
there's
sure.
more layers. Yeah, I remember going into it and not having much. I just wanted to make movies.
Yeah.
And no real idea of like what any of it was, and coming out of it, After Effects and these other things where you could kind of like manipulate what you've captured.
Right.
It was this is cool. And, still to this day, I'm constantly wondering what I like doing,
Oh, yeah.
It's like the cool thing I think about that program is, at the time it was 2 years. And like you say, you're kind of, if you like something, you kind of gravitate to spending more time.
Yeah.
Like all my extra
sort of
time.
Stream into that. Yeah. You kind of like specialize in that. And they do let you do that. Like, I don't have any part of it, but like in the later periods, like the second year, you sort of like pick what you want to do. Yeah. You just sort of go for it. Right.
Totally. I think that's like, I'm constantly thinking about that now. Just like, I still do a lot of different stuff.
Yeah.
Like video things. I make commercials. I make logos.
Totally.
You name it. And I'm not the best at any of it. And I'm like, but I'm pretty good at some of it. And like, when you put it all together, it makes a compelling package to be like, come to me.
Yeah.
And I can do lots of it.
Yeah.
But in that process, like, what do I like doing? Like, what's the one thing that's like, I'm in this flow and I could just keep doing it, versus the other things where it's like more of a means to the end. Like I know how to do this, so I will either to get to this stage or to make money.
But that's the beauty of being like freelance, is like you don't really have to pick and choose. That's why I didn't really want to go to a studio. Is like, you're going to be working on way higher end stuff, and like, no freelancers taking on like a Marvel movie. But at the same time is like, you get to do everything, and you don't really get tired. Like, you get tired of one thing, then you do, there's always something else to get excited about, like.
And there's something like, lots of the stuff I do is typically outdoor and has some kind of sense of like visual effects trickery in it.
Yeah.
But it's like pretty janky.
Yeah.
And I kind of love that, like, in my jankiness, it still works. Like, it's not the best. And if you dissect it too much, you'll see what's going on. But there's like a charm to like kind of made that with not much,
Yeah, and you know what? I definitely feel that. I'm like, oh man, if the client actually knew what was going on here, it'd be like, there'd definitely be some questions. But then I'm working on stuff, and because I went to school there, and I got some friends in big massive studios working on like the most expensive films. I'm like, hey, well, what do you think about this? And like, this seems kind of janky. Like, I'm kind of just putting this together like with scraps, and they're like, dude, this whole place is just run on duct tape and chewing gum. They're like, it's no different. Totally. Like, it's just like a higher end jankiness, like they have their systems are so much more complex that those systems are just put together with duct tape and chewing gum too. Like, it all, I mean, to a certain degree, but
it is interesting how you like, it's just a different layer. There's just more of like what you're doing. And when I think about like when I started and when we started and like what I was using and what I was able to do, and then to now, like how much better I've gotten just with like what I'm able to do and what programs I use and like the skills and tools. And still at the end of the day, it's still like problem solving. Like, you're still just like, any way you can get to a solution.
Yeah,
like
you get more confident with your jankiness. Like, that it's probably gonna, as long as it looks good in the end, it doesn't really matter how you got there.
For sure. And in the beginning, you feel like you really are doing something that like nobody else is doing. Like in a way that's like, oh, I'm just like duct taping this together.
Yeah.
Like, and then you realize like, oh no, everybody's kind of just in most careers too. Fair enough. There's some where it's like you need to be like someone doing brain surgery is probably pretty dialed.
Yeah, you'd hope so.
But I think it's
not life or death for us. So
no. Killed a few pixels along the way.
The only difference I would say though is like they have backup. We don't.
Yeah.
Because like we're solely responsible for whatever job we take on.
Yeah.
If we're even if we're working as part of a bigger team, which we usually are, we are responsible for that.
Yeah.
For getting whatever it is that we took on. The buck stops with you and me, right? At a larger place, they have backup. It's like, if you can't figure it out, there's a team there that's got your back.
Totally.
So that's what also makes, there's more in the line a little bit with freelance work, I feel like.
Yeah, and you know, like you said, you know, being able to just send stuff to a buddy that's working somewhere. You know, we all have. You're one of the people I, you know, ask. Yeah. You know, oh man, I think I'm in over my head. How do I do this? Yeah. And it's amazing that, like, you know, obviously a certain amount of experience leads to it, but at some point you kind of, I don't want to say there's nothing, but there's very little that would come my way where I'm like, well, I can't do that.
Yeah,
like, most of the time something comes and it's like, I don't know if it's how other people would do it, but I can think of some solution to do this.
And I think there are just so many different ways of doing the same thing, and everyone's got their own different way of working. But yeah, I think, there's just a million ways of doing the same thing. And I think it's just having the confidence to be able to like piece that together before you start, you know, and at least have some kind of game plan that you feel somewhat confident about. But like, like 20 years ago, it would be like, oh my God, you know, like, well, how are we going to do this? I have no idea, you know?
I remember feeling so confident in your skills that, like, no matter what someone asked on the phone, you know, for us to do, I'd be like, oh yeah, no problem. And I could see you looking over like, oh, what's he agreeing to right now? And then I would tell you and you'd be like, oh God, I don't know if we can do this.
I don't know if we can do it. Yeah, and then let's figure it out. Yeah.
I remember thinking like, there's literally nothing that this guy can't figure out. And not only figure out, but like execute on like a way higher level than what we should be able to do. I remember when you left to go back to school, I remember being like, oh, I'm screwed now. This is like been the crutch for all these years. But I think one thing that, like you mentioned, just being freelance and having to figure it all out, is that like, I've never been afraid of like trying a different program or trying a different, you know, set of tools just to see, you know, to like, will this solve the problem? Never being overwhelmed by like a new interface or, and I think when you get really, you know, siloed into just doing one thing and I just use this software and I'm really good at it, that's great. But it doesn't open you up to this kind of like, oh, that's cool. You know, like I tried, you know, Unreal Engine. I really like playing in there. I'm going to spend more time there.
Totally.
Or, you know, you just like, I just use Nuke or whatever it might be. And that's what I do every day.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like that. It's kind of like creates this broader picture of.
Oh yeah. You get to sort of like, definitely like try and find the best, fastest way to do things. Not always the best, but you know, fastest, least expensive. But that is an issue now, just how expensive things are getting. Like, and it's getting to the point where you can't really do as much of that, you know, like trials and stuff like that. I don't know. It's tough, man. Like, I wish there was a lot more. I don't know, like software has just gotten so expensive that you kind of get locked into that because you spend so much money on it, you know, like just even the Adobe stuff is just, it's mind blowing how you can't just sort of like buy the Adobe suite every like 3 or 4 years until you got the money, because you can still use the old stuff. There's nothing wrong with it. There's no like killer features in the new one. I bet you I could use Photoshop from 20 years ago still for most of the stuff I do. But it's just so expensive, and like it's the subscription, it's just so overkill, you know. Everything
being a subscription is hard.
It's very hard.
I stick to like, you know, for me Adobe's a lot of what I use, so that's
absolutely
like just, you know, part of the cost of running
you have business. To have it like you have to do it. Like,
then the other ones, you know, it's like Unreal Engine's another great one, you know, and, you know, it's mostly free unless you
they have a different model, which is fair enough, you know. Like their model's pretty good. It's like if you make over like they have like tiers about how much money your business makes. Fair enough. Yeah, that works.
I haven't hit those tiers yet.
No, I've never actually used it, so I don't know. I use the assets a lot, like the Quixel store and stuff like that.
All the mega scans.
Yeah.
That part's super cool, like how much is available now. You know, for dudes like us, and you've done that, like you've gone out and done photogrammetry and done scanning and built this stuff. I rely on everything everybody else has done. So that part's
I do
cool.
too now. Like, and a lot of people, like at first when you're using a lot of stock and stuff like that, it's like, you know, you get sort of needled a little bit, like, oh, you're not like, why would I spend sort of like, you need a vehicle or like a rock face or some crazy texture or something like that. Why would I spend like 3 months making this like beautiful asset, and the exact same thing that I want that someone's already made and does it for a living, so does really nice work? Why would I not just pay him like whatever it costs, like a few $100 or whatever, and to buy that person's asset and it's done? You know, like it's insane. Yeah, like there's no point. Like if you need a tree, like do I want to spend like, you know, 2 weeks of my time modeling this like super awesome tree when there's a super awesome tree right there that I can just buy? Like just a lot of background assets. You're always gonna have to make like the hero stuff, but like stock has come a long way. I think that's actually saved so much time for a lot of people. Just the availability of really good stock, just for everything from set deck to like background and environments and stuff like that. Like they're already there and they're all done super well. So why not use it? You know, like someone else is making money off of it too. Yeah.
I love that. I buy tons of assets for the stuff I'm doing, between like, you know, asset stores and YouTube Premium. I feel like I can solve most problems. So many tutorials, which is another thing.
Like buying like the skies and stuff like that. Like I'm not gonna go, like I'm not a professional photographer. I'm pretty sure I could make like a nice sky dome, but like I also don't live in a place where it's flat, you know. Like so I'm just gonna buy the stuff, you know?
And there's so much good stuff. And even that, thinking about, you know, because part of this podcast is about, you know, the fact that creative people living remotely, and there's advantages for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's disadvantages, and like one of the advantages now, it's not just being remotely, but it makes it easier, is just that there is tons of assets. There's tons of tutorials. Like rarely is there something that I'm trying to do that I can't find either a tutorial or a forum post or somebody at least getting me close.
Absolutely. And it's still to this day, like you can't remember all the steps involved in doing some of these things, especially in like 3D and rendering, like what some kind of like obscure part of a shader does. It's like I've used it a million times, but I can't remember all that crap. So I just go to YouTube and there's some guy that just shows you exactly what you're looking for. You know, it's great. It makes things so much better. And even I've had subscriptions to like the online learnings, you know, like I don't have one now, but I've had like, it's not called Lynda anymore, but like stuff like that, you know, like FX PhD and stuff like that. I've had all that stuff for sure, and it's all there, and it's good. There's always some little tidbit, no matter how good you are. You go back and watch some of those things. It's like, that's a great idea, you know?
Because you know, I do so many different things that like I might do a project that's heavily based in 3D. And I'll be in it for 3 months, and then I'll do one where I'm doing just more video editing and After Effects. And I'll be gone for 3 months, and then I come back and I'm like, how do you do this again? And so just those quick reminders of like, and then, you know, you spend a day or two, a few days, a week in it, you're like, I feel, you know, I'm good again. But you can't remember it all. There's just no way. And that kind of leads me to like, I'm not a hotkey guy, because there's just so many different things I've done that like, and I'll be teaching at school and the students are all, you know, the hotkey is this. I'm like, I know, but like there's just too many hotkeys for every like, and I try and reprogram them all, but you can't, so I just give up. I'm like, no, not a hotkey guy. The problem is when you rely on hotkeys and you forget them, is that you don't know
where
in the menu. Like it's crazy.
The menu.
Like in some programs I use hotkeys and I'll be like, come back and be like, what was, man, no, it's not that. And then I'm like, I don't even know.
You don't even know where it is in the menu. You don't even know what it's called.
I don't even know what to search for.
It just does this, you know?
It's the thing I use to do the thing. So now you've gone to school for one program, which is we went to, and then you went to school for the visual effects program. You came out of that. You've done a ton of different stuff. Like you've done
a lot of different things.
Like fully animated videos. You've done visual effects and live action. You've created like really wild stuff. I'll link to Jer's portfolio so you can check out. It's probably not up to date because you've been so busy. But.
No, I haven't. Yeah, I've tried on Instagram, but
right.
Yeah.
But now you're in a place where you're doing visual effects supervising.
Yeah.
On a cool big project. Can't really talk about it too much, but like, you know, from the beginning to where you are now, and in that role as a visual effects supervisor, and like probably looking after a team that's fairly competent.
Oh yeah, way more than I am. Yeah, I'm not really. I'm yeah.
Sorry, not looking after, but
just part of a big team for sure. Yeah.
And how does that feel now to kind of be at this place in your career? Does it feel like imposter syndrome, or
yeah, a little bit for sure, because you know, doing freelance work and like there's been big productions we've worked on, but it's always post, right? So it's like after everything's done, all the production's over with, you get the material, and then they're just so different. I'm not used to the production side, like being on set and stuff like that. It's super fun, and it's so different for me, like all the travel and like just being on a big set with like a ton of people around you. Like it can be a little intimidating, but it's also pretty nice, you know, like because there's always someone that has a role, you know. You don't have to do everything yourself. Like you don't have to set things up, and like people, like food's always there. Like you don't have to really think about anything but your job, which is, it's pretty nice. But at the same time, it's like I've never done any of this stuff. Like it is definitely imposter syndrome. They'll be like, hey, can you just whip me off this and this? It's like, yeah. And then what is that? You know, like just like constantly, I don't know what these acronyms are, like what is it? And it's usually something like pretty minor. It's just like I've been doing things in such a way for so long, and it's probably not the standard way of doing things, and then they're giving you this, like, these guys work on films every day. This is just like another job for them almost.
Yeah.
For a lot of the other, not the sort of directors and stuff like that, like this is definitely their, you know, they care about this, like they all care about it, but for a lot of people, like it is just it's their job, you know, and they've done it standardized ways for so long, and I have no idea. Like I can usually like figure it out, but definitely a little bit of imposter syndrome for sure.
Yeah, it is a weird one too, going from like, you know, when you're doing lots of post and stuff comes in and you're like, oh, you know, why'd you do it that way? Or if you just spent, you know, an extra 10 minutes, we would save us all this time. And then you get out there and you realize like how many moving parts there are and how many things, and you're just like,
yeah,
oh well, I know we can fix that later.
Yeah, you think that definitely, like you think that like when you get all the material, you kind of like live in this bubble where you think you're like why didn't you just get it this way, or like why didn't you just do this, or you kind of feel like you're one of the, it's like usually you and like, you know, maybe a group of guys and an editor, and you're all sort of like working together, and it feels pretty tight knit. But like on the other side of it, it's just this like crazy cluster, you know, like that there's so many things going on, and they got to make so many decisions over like just everything, that it makes a lot of sense now. Like maybe it's like a little bit more complicated than I thought, which it totally is.
Yeah, definitely more variables. And like I think the nice thing though about like having done so much post and doing like janky post, like being able to like figure it out and make it work, is that when you're out there you really do know what is a problem and what is like, nah, like that's manageable. Yeah. And, you know, that's obviously part of why they have you there too, is like, hey, you know, what can we get away with? What's going to save us time now? How do we make this?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I do like that. I do like being on set and being able to be like, okay, yeah, it's going to kind of suck, but like that's totally unmanageable. As long as we get this extra thing or a clean plate or whatever it might be.
Yeah, exactly.
We can deal with
and that is kind of like the benefit too. It's like I get to like sort of, I know what it's going to be like after. So I'm like, hey, can we just tweak this one little thing? It's going to shave off some time there. It's going to make things a little easier, you know, like, because they don't they don't know. They really, I thought there was a little bit more of a knowledge base there. Maybe that's not the right word, but they just got so many other things that they're thinking about that's not their department, right?
Totally.
Like they just don't know. It's like, and that's why
the intricacies. So I got my kids at home alone, just making sure that they're
not fighting like mine do all the time.
They're fighting for sure, but as long as they're both, proof of life.
They're not leaking.
The house hasn't burnt down.
Yeah.
As I was leaving, I was like, if the fire's getting low, just make sure you put a piece of wood on the fire. Then I was like, probably just should have said, just let it go.
Let it go. Yeah. Get a blanket. Yeah.
You'll be fine. The intricacies of post, like you said, like the amount of layers to get good at one thing in post, let alone be someone who's on set as, like the director or a gaffer or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Like to know kind of like what's easier and not easy. If you haven't done it, you just don't.
Yeah. You just don't really know. Yeah.
I think living in a place like this where you're kind of forced into learning a bunch of you're going out and doing some cinematography to capture stuff.
Definitely.
And you're doing editing and you're doing, lighting. You're doing a bit of all the stuff that when you get into those positions, for sure, there's people that know the proper names for everything.
Yeah.
And how to do things like.
But you just know what needs to get done.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what it's called, but I know it's logical. Like, because you've been through all those steps. Yeah.
Even like what lens, like if someone says we're putting on a wide angle or like, and obviously with a 3D, background, you're using lenses in software to like replicate.
Yeah, match stuff.
Yeah.
And you got to have the same lens in post and in animation. Yeah.
So you're doing this and this, how much longer is this project roughly? Like 6 months more?
Oh yeah, maybe that. Yeah. 6.
And is that including the post or is that just principal photography?
That's everything's got to be done. Yeah.
So you guys are doing principal photography and post kind of at the same time?
A little bit. Yeah. Like I mean, we were scouting all summer and then photography was, throughout a lot of the fall, and there's just one more shoot that has to happen, and then it'll be all post. But everything that we've got has gone to the visual effects studio and the bidding process and everything started. So yeah.
I mean, that's pretty cool when you think about like, when I think back 22 or 25 years, however long it's been since we were in that, Soccer College in Trail, BC.
Yeah. It's not even there in Trail anymore.
Yeah. And just learning it to now, you're doing visual effects supervising and post on a huge production where you were, cherry picked to.
Well, it wasn't their first choice.
It wasn't their first choice, but you were at choice.
Yeah. I was the guy who was available, basically, and I'm happy for it.
Listen, I'm never the first choice, but as long as I'm at choice, that's like kept me going, kept a roof over my head, being at choice for a long time. That's super cool. And so going forward, as we wrap up this portion of this podcast, because you kind of have a taste of it all. You've taught, you've done commercial work, car commercials and stuff. You've done kind of generalist animation, all sorts of stuff, and now you've kind of done this big one where you're traveling, you're on set, you're with that, the pressure, everything comes with it. Is that something you want to continue with, or do you want to kind of like settle back into like,
for me it was a good change. I think like I wasn't. Yeah, it's a good change.
Like good challenge or?
Very good challenge. Just learning so much. Like I had to figure out all this new workflow and everything, and it gets me out, which is a good thing. Like being a freelance, doing mostly post work, like it's just a lot of hours in the pain cave, like you're just working there steady, like long hours, and it gets super lonely, to be honest. Like it gets very lonely. So that's why the teaching is great for me, because at least it gets me out of the office one day a week, and I get to hang with like students who got lots of energy and lots of enthusiasm, it's awesome. But this one gets me out a little bit. I don't know, like a balance would be good. Like some of the best projects are the smaller music videos. Like they're just so much fun because their budgets are never great at all, but it's like they know that, and it's like have fun, and you get to come up with some pretty cool stuff, like some of the music videos, the engineering stuff that nobody ever sees, like like I was working on a project for a company that makes robotic submarines and for deep sea exploration. You know, it's like no one's ever gonna really see that stuff, but like it's so fun to work on because they're not into media, they're into making robots, so they kind of leave it up to you, and as long as it looks good to their eyes, it was such a fun project to work on. It just made like a 4-minute fully animated robot video, you know, with like under the sea and stuff. Like it's so fun. And then there's like medium projects, you know, working a lot with like doing show intros for like, you know, documentaries, like working for CBC and stuff like that. Those are super fun because they leave you with sort of creative control, you know, a little bit. You know, those ones are a little bit, they usually come in with a really solid idea and then you work with them, which is great too, you know. So it's just from the top all the way down to like the smaller projects. Yeah, I just doubt I could do a studio. Like if work just dried up and everything, I don't think I would. Honestly, I just having a little bit of that creative control, sometimes more, sometimes less, it makes a huge difference. Yeah. Big difference. And I don't think, I'd probably just find a whole new line of work if I had to do something else, you know, like I thought about it, you know?
Yeah, me too. Because, you know, there is like in freelancing, there's ebbs and flows and highs.
It is hard. It's hard on your family. It's hard on everybody. When work dries up for like a month or two, you're like, man, I got to pay bills somehow, you know, and it does. It totally does. Yeah. It's hard.
It is hard. And I think that, you know, I've been doing it long enough that you know, there's always that little thing at the back of the mind going like, maybe this is it, bud.
Yeah, always.
Maybe this is it. Maybe the phone just doesn't ring.
Yeah.
And it tends to.
It does, yeah.
But, you know, but I do go through that like, if it doesn't, you know, what next?
What's plan B?
Yeah. Rarely is it like to go in to some kind of like what I'm doing, but in like a big operation. It's like I'd rather just maybe change what I'm doing and and do this stuff as like fun on the side.
Yeah, find another like outlet, you know. That's what I kind of came to that conclusion. I was like, man, I love being out in the woods and like doing stuff in the woods. So like,
didn't you almost buy a sawmill?
I did buy a sawmill. Yeah, no, I bought a huge sawmill. Because I was just like, it was one of those things. I was like, I need something else. Sitting in front of this computer all day is like literally killing me. So I need another sort of outlet. And I just love dicking around in the woods. So like I bought a sawmill and I just making flooring yesterday. You know, like it's what I do in my spare time is like saw stuff and work on my cabin. And yeah, it's great. It's awesome because it's not rocket science and it looks great. So yeah.
Well, that's a perfect place to leave it.
Yeah.
So it's like if anybody, if you get to a point where you just don't know what to do,
just buy a sawmill. Yeah.
Thanks, buddy.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much to Jeremy for making his way up to the studio today in a snowstorm and sharing his time with us. Jeremy is incredibly humble, but his ability to produce incredible imagery is truly inspiring. I still learn a ton from Jer all the time, and I hope you learned a little bit too. Until next time.